Good morning, everyone. Morning. My name is SarahSalguera, and I am the program director with the Lakeshore Ethnic Diversity Alliance, and I'm here to talk to you today about how diversity energizes our state. Diversity energizes community and energizes our state. An inclusive region involves everyone having a voice and everyone having a place. Now, one of the prevailing racial ideologies that's been around for 30, 40 years has been this whole colorblind idea, right? We don't want to see race. We don't want to see race. And as somebody who facilitates a lot of discussions with people in the area around race, I hear this all the time, right? I don't see color. I don't care if you're blue or green or purple, right? We don't want to see color. And I get the moral, the lofty idea behind that. What we're really saying is that we want to live in a society where your racial or ethnic background doesn't influence, doesn't determine your opportunities to participate or to prosper in our society. So I get that. I get that idea. It's great, right? That's the goal. That's the society we want to see. But it was like we said, okay, we don't want skin color to matter. What are we going to do? Okay, I got this. Okay, I got this. Here we go. Ta-da! Can't see you. Skin color doesn't matter. So 30, 40 years go by. Are you guys still out there? Do you think I could, take out the... Okay, there we go. Whew. Whoa, what's going on? Still got all kinds of racial inequities. We see dramatic racial disparities in infant mortality rates, and high school graduation, and college graduation, and home ownership, and life expectancy, and unemployment, and over. So, me pretending not to see color for the last 30 years, that didn't just do away with that whole thing? I don't know why. And the research strongly suggests that we do see color. Children as young as 6 months old are able to tell that people come in different colors. And as early as 3 years old, children are already starting to internalize some of the larger societal messages about race. When asked to choose between a white playmate and a black playmate, 68% of black children chose a white playmate. The researchers concluded that at 3 years of age, they were already starting to internalize some of the larger societal messages around race. And I have a 3-year-old. My son is biracial. He's half white and half Latino. My husband's Latino. And so one day we're out, going for a jog. I'm trying to get some exercise. And I'm pushing him in the stroller. And he's a really friendly little guy. He says hi to everybody. So we're jogging along, and there's a little African-American boy who's probably 10 or 12. And my son says, hi. And the other little boy, of course, says hi and smiles back. And my son says, as I'm jogging along, I said hi to that brown boy, Mommy. So what do you say? Critical parenting moment, right? What are you going to say in that moment? He's clearly recognizing that people come in different skin colors. And I think a colorblind ideology would tell us to say, shh, right? How many of you heard that? Honey, don't say that. That's not a nice thing to say. We don't say that. We want our kids to be colorblind, right? But when I think about that response, and I think about the impact that a response like that would have on my son, it would be like, what's wrong? Is there something wrong with talking about race? Is there something wrong with having brown skin that my mom doesn't want me to say that? And so for me, that type of colorblind response is the opposite of an energizing response. What that does is it just shuts down the conversation, because after this comes this. Energizing our community, energizing our state means involving in open, honest conversations about race in our homes with our children, in our schools, in our workplaces, in our faith communities, across our region, across our state. We need to come together with people from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, create safe spaces to talk, to learn, to share, so that way we can understand each other. I heard a story about a group of students who were refugees from Africa, and they came to the U.S. and settled in Ohio, and they were going to school and just becoming increasingly frustrated with their experience at school. And finally, the teachers and the administrators sat them down and said, "What's going on? Why are you so frustrated?" And they said, "People at our school treat us like we're dogs. Our teachers treat us like we're dogs." And they were like, "Oh, what's your experience? What's your experience that's making you feel like you're being treated like you're dogs?" And they said, when my teacher calls me up to the classroom, they go like this. Or when they call me over, they go like this. And the teachers were like, "Oh, okay." And the students said, "In our country, if you call someone like this, that's how you call a dog." And they were like, "Okay, well, how do you call a human being in your country?" And they said, "You don't call a human being like this. You call a human being like that." Pretty subtle, right? Subtle change in gesture had a huge impact in how they were perceiving that situation. So diversity simply means all the ways that make us different. Diversity just simply means that there's variety. Culture is the lens that we use. It's a set of acquired knowledge that we have attained that helps us, view the world. It helps us interpret behaviors and experiences. So two people from different cultures can see the same, very similar gesture in two very different ways. And sometimes I hear people say, "Oh, I don't have a culture. I don't have any ethnic foods in my family," or, "We don't have any cultural dances." Kind of hear that sometimes. And everybody has a culture. Everybody has a culture, whether you're that in tune with it or not. And I want to share one story about how one moment where I really realized that, okay, I do have a culture. So my husband's Latino. He's from Nicaragua. We met in Nicaragua, and we moved to the U.S. and got married. And our wedding was about a month after moving to the U.S. So at our wedding reception, it was mainly my family there. He only had 2 people from his family who were able to come to our wedding. And the moment when I realized, I do have a cultural background and, there are cultural dances, was when at one moment, and I know you guys have probably known what I'm talking about right away, everybody hit the dance floor. They put on this one song, and everybody was out on the dance floor. My aunts and uncles, my great aunts and great uncles, everybody was on the dance floor. And it was when they played the YMCA. Okay, so imagine you go to a different country, you're at some celebration, and all of a sudden everybody's out dancing. They're doing these hand motions that you don't really know about. They're all singing along to this song, that you don't know. They're kind of jumping around, and it's like, oh, you guys have all done this before. That was my husband at our wedding reception during the YMCA. Everybody's out, doing their thing, and he's just like, what's going on? They've all done this before, right? And I remember just watching him and thinking, what is he going to do in that moment? He was kind of like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, he just went for it. He just dove right in, and he was doing this karate chop thing and jumping around, and it was the funniest thing. And I just remember laughing so hard that I couldn't even, do my YMCA motions. But at that moment, I realized, I do have a culture. When I think about my mom preparing, a dinner that would be something from my cultural background, that would be something like cereal. When I think about, my lunch, my mom would pack my lunch every day and go to school. And when I think about that now, I think about, my mom really packed me lunches that really did reflect my cultural background. It was things like peanut butter and jelly. And when your culture is part of the dominant culture, you don't think about that as being an ethnic food. You just think about that as being normal, right? This is normal. That's ethnic. But it's not. It's ethnic, your cultural food. I try and give my husband a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly. He'd be like, "That's not food for me. That's not food. Do not give that to our son. He'll say things like that to me. Because, to him, that's not food. That's not ethnic food. So as human beings, the mind scientists tell us that our brains are just kind of hardwired to want to put people into groups. We want to form in-groups and out-groups. And this can even happen, relatively easy. Like, for example, if I said here, there's those people who sit up, down towards the front. And you all know what they're like, right? And then if I said, well, then there's those people who like to sit in the back. And we all know what they're like, right? Just by doing that, dividing you up, depending on where you're sitting, you're probably like, oh yeah, in-group right here, right? This is where it's at, with the people around you. So as human beings, we want to form in-groups and out-groups. Our brains are hardwired to do that. And when you combine that fact with the fact that we live in a very racialized society, we still see a prevalence of racial stereotypes and still experience all kinds of racial inequities. When those two things come together, it ends badly for everyone. When we categorize people by culture or race or gender, etc., it excludes people from having a place. And that process of exclusion de-energizes communities. So what can we do? What can we do to re-energize our community, to ensure that everybody has a voice and a place? One thing we need to do is stop being so nice. You guys have heard of Midwest nice? Maybe you've heard of Michigan nice? I come from Holland. I live in Holland. There's this thing called Holland nice. I don't know. But what I mean by being too nice is that we're not inclined to critically examine. So part of the problem that we've talked about is, our brains automatically, unconsciously, we want to group people. As we're going through our day, we're trying to sort through a very complex world, and so we're grouping people automatically and unconsciously. What we can do to push back against that tendency is to energize our minds a little bit and engage in some critical thinking. And one thing you can do to engage in critical thinking is ask the question, what if? What if, sitting around this table, not everyone is here who should be here? What if, because I'm seeing the world through my cultural lens, I don't have all of the information that I need to make a good decision about this policy or practice or whatever it is in that situation? So by asking this question, we can start to energize our mind and engage in some critical thinking. So diversity today, this process of energizing and ensuring that everyone has a voice and has a place, it's changing the conversation about diversity from just talking about representation to really thinking about participation. It's changing, thinking about diversity in terms of counting people to making people count, to ensuring that everyone has a voice and everyone has a place. And this is going to take some practice for us. We live in a very segregated state. And so it can take some practice for us to reach across the aisle and, break down some of these barriers. But we can do it the more we practice. I think about that situation, the YMCA example, the YMCA experience with my husband. And I think about if he didn't have a place at the dance floor, if he wasn't invited to the party, that experience wouldn't have happened. If he was there but he didn't feel included or accepted, he didn't feel like he could really, would be welcome to participate in his own special way in that interaction, maybe he would have just kind of, okay, I'm going to sit this one out. I don't even know what's going on. Maybe he would have disengaged from that process. But I remember as I was there and I just saw him dive right in and was watching him, do his version of the YMCA, and all my family was around and thinking, okay, we can do this. We can come together. We can understand each other. We can give people a place on the dance floor. We can help people feel included so that way we can understand each other and really create a new shared identity in this increasingly diverse world. Thank you very much.